why don't you, if you'd be kind enough to do the roll call
Mr. Livingston,
here?
Mr. Nath,
Here.
Mr. Declois, he called in that he won't be able to attend. Mr. Lennon, looks like he's running late. Ms. Cimaroli,
Here.
Mr. Tolmer.
Here.
Okay. Take a motion to adopt minutes from September 28th, 2020 meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay. Justine made the motion. I didn't.
No, I'll motion to
I did.
to accept.
Okay. Any discussion, corrections, comments?
No,
Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor of adopting the minutes signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes are adopted. New business. The long-term flood mitigation plan for McLaughlin Run, presented by the borough engineer. I guess what I'd like to do is have him do his presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions amongst the council and planning commissioners. And once we've had that discussion, then we can open it up for questions from the public, I guess. Okay, John, take it away.
Okay, can everyone see my screen now?
John, I think I gotta stop sharing my screen. So I'm gonna stop
Oh.
sharing and then you take over.
Okay,
All right, it's all you, John.
let's try this again. How about now?
Yes.
Okay, so for those who don't know me, my name is John Heil. I'm with Lennon Smith Solar Engineering. I grew up in Scott Township, and a lot of you probably saw me running around Bridgeville years ago, long time ago. But so after the flooding in the past few years, and especially 17 and 18 and the tragedies that we had, the Army Corps of Engineers did a study. They released it January of last year, basically the study did was it studied McLaughlin Run, produced a hydraulic model through the HEC-RAS program, and they analyzed a few scenarios to you're hitting the wrong button here, I'm sorry, of what could be done to help mitigate some of the flooding. So what's on the screen now is the study area that they looked at. And they looked at not only McLaughlin Run all the way up through the borough, they also looked at and included in the model a portion of the Chartiers Creek back channel, because the back channel has a significant impact on what happens in McLaughlin Run. And I'll explain that a little further here in a few minutes. So a couple of the scenarios that they came up with their alternatives, and their conclusion was, one was just a straight structural buyout. They proposed to buy 16 properties, and then 16 properties are no longer being flooded, basically, because borough would own them, tear them down, and it'd just be open land. Option two was dredging the channel all the way up through. Their model indicated this was going to solve flooding on 24 structures. Not all of them, but 24 structures. They looked at a detention basin up at McLaughlin Run Park. Their model indicated 20 structures not flooding. Not sure if I really agreed with that result, but that's what their model showed. A couple other things they looked at was Bower Hill Road bridge modifications. It doesn't show in the model, it doesn't show any impacts, but as we all know, with that center pier there, if something gets jammed in there and gets caught up by that center pier, it causes significant flooding upstream. But the models don't analyze blocking a bridge opening with a car or a dumpster or anything. It assumes it assumes free flow and what the actual structure does itself, how it obstructs the stream. And then the last thing they looked at was the commercial street bridge replacement, which they indicated it would have 4 structures not flooded. So just doing that. So we took a little bit of a different approach at it. We reviewed all the scenarios that the Corps came up with. I dug into the model very deeply, did a little bit of preliminary, ran some scenarios, some off the wall scenarios just to see what would happen, some realistic scenarios, and was paying attention to what the back channel of Chartiers Creek did to impact the stream, what McLaughlin Run itself, how it impacts the stream, and how the different bridges and stuff impact the stream. So I truly understood what was going on before we came up with any alternative scenarios that we were going to actually model. We identified the critical restriction points and within the stream, and then obviously I spoke with the borough staff, Public Works, a number of the council members and stuff. We went around. We actually walked the McLaughlin Run corridor and looked at a few of the critical areas. So some of the options that we looked at were construction earthen levees to keep the water within the stream and no longer flood the structures, structural levees, bridge removal and replacements, Bower Hill Road Bridge, Baldwin Street Bridge, Commercial Street culverts. We also looked at, like I said, some more, I don't want to call them off the wall, but some scenarios that were a little different. We looked at a flood control tunnel. Sounds like a great idea, except as soon as I started looking at it and I modeled one, it had some impacts. It did improve. Obviously, there's a significant high cost there. But one of the biggest things I saw with that is when I started evaluating the mine maps and the structures that were above where this tunnel would have to go, the tunnel would actually be right at the plus or minus the elevation of the mine. So either the mine would be just above the tunnel or just below the tunnel, depending on what portion of that area you're drilling through. So it became a non-starter because the safety of the residents above it for mine collapse, as well as if the tunnel was sitting right on top of the mine and the mine roof collapsed, the tunnel would collapse, and then we'd have to start from scratch. So it became a non-starter. And I looked into the detention basin up at McLaughlin Run a little bit more and determine if there was a way to make that work where it would actually stop the flooding. And the size of that detention basin would be up to 3 times the size of the ball field area. Again, we don't have that much property, so that became pretty much a non-starter. But while we were doing all this, we were actually working with the borough, and we did a bunch of projects already. Got some projects implemented, some projects that are getting ready to start. We're actually going to have a meeting, 2 meetings tomorrow to kick off 2 projects. But if that the restrictions that we truly identified were problems were obviously the Chartiers Creek back channel is the first and foremost problem. If the water is not flowing through the back channel, when the water from McLaughlin Run comes to meet it, it's got nowhere to go. So, and the model shows that very well. If you when you run the model, you'll see that the back channel has a huge effect all the way up and beyond Bower Hill Road. If you were to completely eliminate Chartiers Creek, the water surface elevation in McLaughlin Run would drop exponentially, but obviously we can't eliminate the flow from the back channel.
Hey, John, it's Tim. Can I ask you a question really quickly? Because I think it's important to the context here. When you say ran the model, or we would need 3 times the size of the existing, are you assuming it's is the 100-year event the input there? Was it
yes.
like what? Okay.
Yes. I'm sorry. I was going to get to that here shortly, but yes,
no problem.
The 100-year model is what we're looking at. 2, 25, 50. We can run those. We can see what they do. I wanted to use the 100-year model. That is I don't want to call it the largest storm event, obviously. There are bigger ones, but that 1% storm event that's the one that everyone worries about. That's the one that causes all the damage. So that's the one we we focused on this. So the commercial street culvert, you can see the photo here of the culvert, and this is what it looked like before we started. The significant impact to the access to the one culvert. So one of the first things we did was we got a permit for the borough to be able to maintain that culvert moving forward. So whenever sediment starts accumulating in there, all the borough needs to do is call DP, hey, we're going to do some additional maintenance on this culvert per the permit we have in place. They've already done that once. They cleaned it out. It is really flowing well now. Public Works did a great job cleaning that out. The next obstruction restriction we saw was obviously the center column on Bar Hill Road Bridge. That's the other photo here. That center column really needs to be eliminated to allow the water to properly flow through here, because this is the area that catches a lot of the debris. It gets hung up there, and then once that's hung up, everything upstream gets backed up. Baldwin Street Bridge is actually another real significant restriction. It's very narrow. It needs to be opened up and widened some so that the water can flow through there. Because of that restriction, the water upstream of it backs up significantly, about 3 feet above the bridge deck. Obviously, what that means is all the water is going to go around the bridge, down Baldwin Street, flood all of Baldwin Street, and then fill up there until it can get back into the stream down at Janeway. Then we also had topographic limitations here. And obviously the borough is pretty much fully developed in this corridor. Don't have a lot of room to move, don't have a lot of room to truly widen the stream and create a more natural stream corridor without significant impacts to the community, i.e. The elimination of properties, which means that's less tax revenue. There's all those implications to it, plus the cost of acquiring all those properties. So those are a lot of the restrictions that we had. And then these are the progress to date. I mentioned the commercial street. Another project we just finished was Maple Street Wall. One of the first things we did when we were going around is we saw the center of that wall it wasn't a nice uniform sweep through there, and it was made with some old gabion baskets that were starting to fail, and there was this basically obstruction halfway around this bend you can see in the photo, and it created a hydraulic problem in this area, as well as the wall was about 12 inches shorter than it should have been. So what the project was, which was just finished, is we removed that center section, pushed it towards the houses a little bit to get that nice uniform bend through there. Eliminated all the obstruction below right at the base of the wall, and then put a concrete cap on top of the wall to raise that elevation. So that cap is at the same elevation as the earthen berm across the creek there, and in that area, the 100-year flood stays within those constraints, to an extent, in the fact that, and we'll get to this in a little bit, the low end of Maple Street, there's a ramp the borough has to get down into the creek to do maintenance when the floods and everything gets locked up. So one of our options is going to be to address that as well, so that water can't just back up that ramp and then back up onto Maple Street. We'll have that resolved with one of the options. But this improvement did have a good impact in this area. It actually lowered the water surface elevation 1/10 to 2/10 of a foot, as well as eliminated the flooding coming around there. Mentioned the Chartiers Creek back channel. We are currently working on a permit here. This photo is the one I just took of the sandbar that has formed at the confluence of McLaughlin Run and Chartiers Creek back channel. The entire back channel is completely filled. It's about 3 feet high above normal water surface elevation. It's a substantial amount of material that's blocking the proper flow of both creeks. So we're working on getting a permit right now to get that out of there and get these creeks flowing correctly. Once they start flowing correctly, that'll help downstream as well as upstream for both, because water will flow, velocity gets to where it needs to be, and it'll be self-cleaning is what we're trying to get it to do. We also have 2 projects that are out to bid right now, or actually out to construction. We have pre-construction meetings tomorrow. We have the McLaughlin Run Park Flood Control Project. This project's been going on for a long time. Previous engineers started the project. We took it over, finished it, got it approved, got permits through DEP, the Conservation District. This is going to consist of constructing a trash rack in McLaughlin Run up at the park. Basically, it's going to be 5 18-inch diameter steel caissons that are going to be driven down into the ground, and they're going to be at an angle both to the flow of water and at a skew, so that if something comes floating downstream from Upper St. Clair, say it's a dumpster, it's going to hit these, it's going to catch them there before it gets to any of the bridges, and it's going to be deflected into McLaughlin Run Park, in the ball field area. Now, as part of this, we're going to lower the ball field area, make it a large floodplain area so it can detain water, as well as capture all this debris and hold it until the water subsides. Public Works can just roll right in there, grab that material, and haul it away very easily without having it being wedged up underneath a bridge. The other project we're going to construction on tomorrow is, oops, I'm sorry, there we go, is the Janeway access ramp. This is right there at that Bar Hill Road Bridge. The problem here obviously is until we can get that bridge replaced, everything accumulates up against the center column and backs water up. In the past, Public Works had to remove the dirt, remove the concrete jumbo block wall it's constructed there, so they can get a piece of equipment in there to clean it out. Obviously, that takes a larger piece of equipment than Borough has, so it's either a rental or we got to hire someone to do that. So what we're going to do is build a concrete ramp down into the stream. The jumbo block wall will remain. It'll be reconstructed, but it will remain. But in that section where the ramp is, we're putting a removable watertight system. And the picture here shows what it looks like. These are basically fiberglass logs that seal together. They're watertight. They drop through a little rack system, and Public Works can pick these out with their backhoe very easily. There's a nice little gadget they use to pick them up and pull them out. It'll keep the water in the creek when it floods, but then it allows us to get in there and get everything out of there that accumulates. Both McLaughlin Run Park and Janeway, we received grants to do those projects. So those projects came in within budget. So they're basically fully funded by the grants that we received, which is great for the borough. Okay, bear with me here. It's jumping around on me. Let's see here. Zoom slideshow. Previous. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. So we spoke about the alternative options for consideration. The detention basin, adequate area wasn't available, so we kind of threw that one out. The tunnel, concerns with the mines, cost, and then the one other thing that I found in the model is Chartiers Creek, the back channel, the elevation and how it floods actually would fill the channel, the tunnel, before McLaughlin Run could actually use the tunnel. So that was another problem we were having with it. It really wasn't getting the bang for the buck we were hoping for. Obviously, the Bar Hill Road Bridge, we definitely need to get that center column removed. Baldwin Street Bridge, we need to either reconstruct or remove that so that that stream channel can open up there a little bit more and allow the water to pass through. And then the Commercial Street culvert, after we evaluated, we got it cleaned out. I found that the railroad bridge has probably as much, or if not more, impact to the flow of the water than the Commercial Street culvert does, just because of how low those I-beams are. They produce the headwaters before it even gets to the Commercial Street culvert, and since Commercial Street culvert is so close to them, they're literally butting up against each other. The water doesn't have a chance to come back up before it gets to the culvert, so it's really doing much to that other than keeping it clean. Isn't going to do a whole lot for the project. One thing we do want to do eventually here is, and this is way down the road, won't be part of the flood control project, but something we need to do, is we need to get the sanitary sewer out of the creek there. The manholes stick up all the way through that area. They're another debris catcher, obviously, and they are hindering flow to an extent. That's obviously gonna take some work with Alcosan since it's their SOAR, and that'll be a whole nother conversation with a whole nother project. So we came up with 3 options that we really considered, looked at pricing, looked at what the model did. Option 1 proposes improvements from the old skating rink all the way up to just past Baldwin Street Bridge, a little bit of work at Maple Street, and then some improvements just upstream of Maple Street as well. What we did is we broke this into 3 phases. Phase 1 is from the skating rink to Commercial Street. Phase 2 is basically from Commercial Street, Bower Hill Road, up to Baldwin Street. And then phase 3 is from Maple Street up to the end of the proposed improvements. So for option 1, and actually for all 3 options, phase 1 of this project is the same. We actually met with the DEP on this phase of the project already. They're on board with this phase. And what we found was the Commercial Street side of the stream there is above the 100-year flood elevation. It doesn't flood. Obviously, the side with the borough building, everything that in the skating rink, that all floods when the waters come up. But we don't have a whole lot of room to work there because all the buildings were constructed right along the stream. Bowling alley, skating rink, and a number of those industrial buildings there, they're all right up against the stream. So we didn't have a whole lot of room to work with, but we did have some. So what we came up with was to construct a soldier beam and lagging levee wall just north of the roller rink, all the way up to Commercial Street, about 1,100 feet. We're going to do a little bit of storm sewer relocation, and I'll show you this in a rendering here in a few minutes. And then we're going to install two screw pumps to keep pump the water out from behind the levee once for the water that falls from the sky. And I'll explain that a little bit more here in a second as well. And this resolves all the flooding of properties along Carroll Avenue. So basically everyone from Commercial Street down to the skating rink should not experience any more flooding unless it's localized flooding for something other than the stream coming up. Now the cost for phase 1 of this is $3.9 million. So here's a rendering of that area. Here's the soldier beam and lagging wall. And as part of this green area is actually, we're creating a floodplain area below the wall. So right now, if you go down there, it's a 2-to-1 to 1-to-1 slope from the edge of water straight up to the top. What we're doing is we're going to cut straight down for the soldier beam and lagging wall, and then build a shelf there that's anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15 feet wide. That's going to be planted with natural stream buffer plantings, and gives you a larger floodplain. And hydraulically, this section of the project actually has a beneficial impact upstream, even more than we even anticipated. But like I said, with doing this, all these buildings here typically will not experience any flooding unless there's localized flooding. Now, to the localized flooding, when we do this, there's 2 storm sources, one outfall. There's one right here, and there's one right here. Actually, there's 3. I'm sorry. There is one right here we're getting rid of. We're going to eliminate this outfall. We're going to reroute this storm sewer down to here. We're going to put Tide Flex anti-flow or anti-backflow devices on each of these outfalls. So as the stream comes up, the water's not going to be able to come back up into the storm system and bubble up through the inlets and flood this area that way. Problem with doing that, as it's raining and all this area is collecting water, there's nowhere for this water to go. So in order to get that back into the stream, we're going to put screw pumps. We're going to put a screw pump in this area here, a screw pump in this area here. They'll have generators with them so that if power goes out, they can still run. And I have a picture of what the screw pump looks like. One second here. Not sure where it went. I'll show it to you here shortly. So here's a blow up of that area. So here's the bowling alley. There's a storm sewer that comes right down between the bowling alley and this industrial building here. And then there's another storm sewer that comes down through over here. So we're going to intercept that, bring it across the back here, tie it in. Here's our screw pump. Here's our generator. During normal events, this water is just going to flow straight through the storm sewer into the stream. When the stream comes up above that pipe, the screw pumps will kick on, pump the water basically up over top of the wall. There's what a screw pump basically looks like. It moves a lot of water very quickly. We'll have a structure at the bottom there of the manhole deep. The screw pump will come down into it and it just turns, and the blades just pick the water up and it'll just push it over the top of the wall. We'll typically do this. We'll push this into another little structure that has a pipe outlet that sticks out the wall. For levee purposes, this wall is going to sit about 3 feet above the 100-year flood elevation at the requirement of FEMA. So once we get this all done and constructed, we can actually go submit a LOMAR, a letter of map revision to FEMA, and remove all these properties from the flood impacted condition. Their flood insurance goes down. They won't have to pay those large flood insurance prices. I'm sure they've already seen the impacts. It's supposed to be a 3-tier increase. I think we're still on tier 1, but a lot of these properties, within the next 5 to 10 years, their flood insurance will probably cost more than the properties are worth. A lot of municipalities are going to find that they're going to end up with a lot of vacant land because people aren't going to be able to pay for the insurance when they get flooded out. They're not going to have insurance to fix the property, so they're just going to walk. So then you're going to have a vacant piece of land that the borough's going to be stuck having to deal with. Okay, phase 2. Phase 2 is from Bower Hill Road up to Baldwin Street. Again, because of restraints of all the buildings that are tight against the stream, Bower Hill Road is right up against the stream. This phase, we decided to, for this option at least, we decided to continue the old Soldier Beam and lagging levee walls for both banks. We're going to do it on the left bank, and then we're going to also do it on the right bank. Now with this, we're going to eliminate the sidewalk along Bower Hill Road, and we're going to reestablish the pedestrian corridor up Baldwin Street and reconnect it into Bower Hill Road at McLaughlin Run. The reason for this is we want to get that a little bit of extra space there for flood control and establishing somewhat of a floodway or a floodplain there in that corridor without having to significantly impact all the businesses and residential properties that are along Baldwin Street. Again, we're going to have 2 screw pumps. We're going to replace Bower Hill Road Bridge. This is something obviously we'll have to work with the county with, because that's a county bridge. But we want to eliminate that center column and adjust the low rise of the structure. We also want to replace Baldwin Street Bridge. We're going to raise that bridge a foot. We also want to widen that opening a few feet, quite a few feet actually, and get that opening so that the water can actually pass below that bridge without backing up 2 to 3 feet. Now this resolves all the stream flooding all the way down to the confluence from Baldwin Street. This portion of the project is a $15 million cost, but it does include condemnation of 4 properties to make this happen, and I can show you what those properties are. Get this thing to continue to work. There we go. The properties that were going to be condemned are those 3 little houses along Bower Hill Road here, and the one structure that we called as to be condemned is actually, I found out just recently, had burned down, so it's no longer even an issue. But we'd have to condemn the property so we could do the work. As you can see here, here's the new bridge across Baldwin Street. There's a pedestrian walkway. We're going to reconstruct Bower Hill Road as well. As a lot of you know, there's been problems with Bower Hill Road. It doesn't hold up. A lot of that problem is the soils below this road. So we're going to have a significant reconstruction of that road. But we're going to dig down about 4 feet and get that Play-Doh type soil that's in there out, and then bring in a bunch of stone to stabilize that road so they can actually handle the traffic it's getting. And we show the new bridge at Bower Hill Road, and the sidewalks are being revised to provide access to Bluff Street, but we're not going to have the access down Bower Hill Road anymore for pedestrians. There'll be signs to direct them to come down Baldwin Street. Here's Janeway. We have that access point built into this model as well. Here's the screw pump right at Janeway. And then we have a screw pump just outside this view. And then here's what looks like a close-up of Baldwin Street Bridge. As you can see, all this green area, it doesn't exist as open area for water right now. The bridge is literally as wide as those 2 blue lines. So by doing this, obviously we provide a lot more room for water to pass underneath this bridge. This was really telling in the model. In fact, I had a head scratch a few times because the model shows a little bit of a post-development jump just for like brief second just below the bridge. It's not that it's an actual jump, but what's happening is the water is no longer 3 feet higher on this side than it is on this side of the bridge because it actually can pass under. So it actually shows it going level instead of 3 feet higher and then dropping down underneath and doing a hydraulic jump. So it was very telling that this bridge is significantly impacting the flow of McLaughlin Run. Okay, phase 3. Phase 3 is about the same for all 3 options as well. So phase 1 and phase 3 are the same for all 3 options. Phase 2 is where the big changes. Yeah.
These are like suggestions, right?
Yes.
Okay, just check it. That's what.
Oh yeah. There's 3 options for consideration of what we've come up with. We can obviously put piecemeal stuff together with this. This is what we've come up that works the best, the most cost effective. I know you're seeing some large numbers. I get it, trust me, but cost effectively, they are the most cost effective. Other alternatives are a lot larger than those. So phase 3, again, phase 3 is going to be a mix of an earthen levee and a soldier beam levee, depending on property use and the availability. We're going to install what's called the stop log, which is what I was showing you down at Janeway. We're going to install one of those at the end of Maple Street so that water doesn't back up Maple Street anymore. And then this resolves all the flooding all the way up the rest of the way up the stream. Once we do this, basically there's no structures that will begin flooded typically. And I say that because obviously if a bridge gets blocked up with something, it could still potentially have some flooding. There's no way to control that. Phase 3 is a $2.5 million project. Phase 3, as you can see, here's the little wall we're going to build across. So here's the wall you saw the picture of. And then we're just going to bring a little wall across to the large slope right here. Have the little stop log access point with the existing concrete ramp that goes down into the stream. And again, we're going to provide some floodway in here so the water has somewhere to go and flow downstream. Couple sections just so you can understand. You can see 2 blue lines. Okay, so this is upstream of Baldwin Street. Remember I mentioned the 3-foot jump. This line up here, that's the 100-year flood pre-development. This is where it's going to be post-development. Significantly lower than where the bridge is. Here's upstream of Bower Hill Road. Not as much of a impact, but it's still the little triangle on the line, a little dot on the line. That is the 100-year. That is the proposed 100-year. The straight line is the existing. So there's a drop in water surface elevation there. Here's the levee wall. You can see protecting all this property. There's no water in here because water can't get in there anymore. And then here is downstream of Commercial Street, same thing. It's about a half a foot drop to a foot drop. Here's the levee wall, keeping all these buildings dry. Option 2, this went a little bit, we went a little different here. So some considerations for some savings. Again, as I mentioned, phase 1, phase 3 are the same. Phase 2 is where the difference is. Bower Hill Road and this portion of the stream here stays about the same as in option 1. The big change here is instead of trying to reconstruct Baldwin Street Bridge, which is a significant cost, we're proposing to put a cul-de-sac here, put a little parkette, and have a pedestrian bridge here. Now they make a fiberglass pedestrian bridge, which we've installed in a number of communities, that can be basically placed by 4 people. You don't even need a crane to place these. They don't move. They've been tested in Squall Run down in Fox Chapel. We have 2 of them there. And when Squall Run was completely destroyed, the bridges didn't even show any impact. And then reestablish the pedestrian walkway, and then widen McLaughlin Run intersection here to provide a right and a left turn lane here, so that people can get in and out of here a little bit better, a little bit more efficiently. So again, phase 1, same as option 1. Phase 2, Soldier Beam Wall on both sides of McLaughlin Run from Bower Hill Road up to Baldwin Street. Baldwin Street Bridge gets replaced with a fiberglass pedestrian bridge. Build a cul-de-sac on Baldwin Street, so it's no longer a through street. We install the screw pumps. This again resolves all the stream flooding. Cost for this one's $13.2 million. We get to the end here, we're going to show you a comparison of the 3 options so you can see how the numbers change. This one does include condemning 6 properties. 3 of them are those 3 houses. 4th one is the one has recently burned down, and then there's 2 others right where the cul-de-sac's going to be that'll have to be condemned. So here's what it looks like. Again, this area stays about the same as phase or option 1. You can see the improvements of Janeway there, bridge, come down. Here's the cul-de-sac. Here's the bridge. Here's a nice blow up. I should have another blow up right here. So instead of having this, you can see this big rectangle where the old bridge was. Instead of having that huge structure there, you just have this nice little fiberglass walking bridge right here. So there's a lot less obstruction through this area here for the water, which again, this is what causes most of the flooding down Baldwin Street, because the water backs up here, flows right through here, and then down the road. We figured we could put a nice parkette here with a gazebo. People can sit at, and it has the interconnection between the business section of Bridgeville and the more residential sections. And phase 3, as I mentioned, is the same as for all 3 options. And you can see it's got the same hydraulic impacts as the other. Actually, above Baldwin Street, it gets even more. It's almost like 4 feet of difference between pre and post. Bower Hill's same, and so is Commercial Street. And then option 3. Now this is the one that's more of out of the box more. It's going to have a lot more impact. It's going to have a lot different look. Does a lot of good things, has a lot of negatives to it, but it's for consideration. As I indicated, phase 1's the same, and phase 3 are the same as the other 2 options. Phase 2 is significantly different. Phase 2, we're going to completely eliminate Bower Hill Road from the intersection of Bluff all the way up to McLaughlin Run. So we're going to use that area to widen the stream, provide a slope, provide a riparian corridor through there, We're gonna build an earthen levee on the Baldwin Street side of this. Plantings, you can see all the green areas is basically gonna become park area. We're gonna reconstruct the intersection at Bower Hill Road and Railroad Street to have a more of a plus intersection, a more functioning intersection. And then we're gonna do a roundabout at the instead of the traffic light at Baldwin Street and McLaughlin Run. Have a little stub for Bower Hill Road just to service those few, the church and a few houses that are along there. And then reconnect the Bower Hill Road with a different road system. As you can see through this, and let's get to a blow up in a second here, it's going to have some significant impacts. Let's get past this. So as we indicated, so we're going to remove Bower Hill Road from the Railroad Street, McLaughlin Run, all the way to McLaughlin Run. We're going to reconfigure the intersection at Baldwin Street and at Bower Hill Road. Reconstruct that bridge. That bridge now gets a lot smaller at Bower Hill Road because we're not trying to get Bower Hill Road across it. So it gets a much smaller structure, which allows us to reduces the cost of that bridge, but it also reduces the impact it has on the hydraulics. Then obviously we're going to replace Baldwin Street Bridge similarly to what we did in option 1 to accept the roundabout that we proposed. This option gets you a nice vegetated riparian buffer through this corridor instead of the urban stream channel that we have now and that we would maintain with the other options. The big things with this is, one, you're condemning 37 properties. That doesn't sit well really with myself, but it's something to consider. And then price of this just for phase 2 is 16.9 million. So it's a huge cost for this option. Here's a blow up of it. You can see the new intersection and how it would work. Here's the roundabout. This kind of mimics the master plan that, to an extent, it mimics the master plan that EPD came up with. After you do all this, there is a piece of land here that would definitely be redevelopable. It could be resold and repurposed for commercial use or residential use, whichever the case may be. Some of these properties, even though we have them shown green, you could probably repurpose these parcels as well because they won't flood anymore. Here's that intersection at Bower Hill Road. As you can see, this bridge is a lot smaller. There's the old bridge way out here to here. Now it stops here, so you're reducing the amount of bridge there. You're widening the stream through here significantly. The floodplain gets a lot larger here, so we have a lot more area down at the stream for water to be instead of it being up above. So the water surface drops. Oops. And then here's the roundabout. Ties into the alleyway, ties into McLaughlin Run. There's Bower Hill Road will come in like this, and then there's the little road stub. And as you can see, this bridge kind of matches up with the phase 1 bridge for the most part, or the option 1 bridge for the most part, other than it'll change slightly to allow for the curves for the roundabout. And then obviously this gets rid of the traffic signal there with the roundabout. And then PennDOT would be involved with this because obviously this is their road and they're going to have significant comments on the roundabout option, but they are promoting roundabouts everywhere. So that they should like that. And phase 3 is the same. Now here's where the importance comes in. So here's our options that we've come up with. So option 1, again, that has, just a refresher, it has replacing Bower Hill Road Bridge. It has replacing Baldwin Street Bridge in kind, adjusting them to provide hydraulic opening. Total cost for all 3 phases is $21.4 million. 4 properties get condemned, 6 structures get demolished. Option 2 is the one with the cul-de-sac and the pedestrian bridge. It's 19.6 million. There's 6 properties condemned with that and 6 structures demolished. And then option 3, which is the riparian buffers option, it's 23.35 million. A good 4 million more than option 2. 37 properties get condemned, which means no tax revenue from those parcels anymore. 27 structures will be demolished. There's a lot of businesses in option 3 that would be eliminated that are profitable businesses that I personally don't see as a feasible scenario to tear those buildings down. I mean, there's a number of businesses here that are flourishing. There's a few businesses along here that are flourishing that this is going to greatly impact.
John, do those costs include any of the
I'm sorry, what was that?
Do you're talking about include any of the property acquisition, or is it
Yes.
pure? They
Yes.
do.
It includes everything. We included the cost for acquisition, cost for demolition, construction costs, all inclusive.
So, John, I have a question too. So either of these plans, option 1, 2, or 3, you mentioned earlier that you do this and the property owner's insurance will go down. It won't be considered floodplain. If we did this, would this area be taken off be considered a floodplain, so to speak?
Right. What we do is after we get this all,
And is there different levels? Is option 1 everybody, are they all the same? Basically?
all 3 of these options get us the same result. Nobody's structure is getting flooded anymore. Of course, some of them is the structures are gone, so that's why they're not getting flooded. But there's no longer any structures through the corridor getting flooded. So what we do is after we get this constructed, however we end up finding funding to do so, we'll do the letter of map revision, submit it to FEMA. Takes about 8 months to get through it with them. I just finished one up in Indiana, PA. Once that map's revised, every one of those parcels will no longer show the structures within the floodplain, which means they don't have to pay the increased flood insurance rates. They wouldn't be required to have flood insurance to get a loan or for someone to buy the property. So if they're not required to buy flood insurance, it'll be a significant savings. Like I said, in fact, some of these structures along this corridor, the flood insurance will be well above the house payments per year. If you pay $12,000 for to pay for the house every year for your loan, you may be paying $14,000 to $16,000 in flood insurance when FEMA's all said and done.
Yeah, John, you mentioned that 3-tier insurance plan as if it's a program that's like, is it already underway, those plans?
Yes, it's in
Okay.
place. They haven't been real clear. FEMA hasn't been real clear on how and when each tier is going to implement. They had an initial plan and they've already deviated from that, and I'm sure the federal government has kind of weighed in on them a little bit to delay it even more with what's happened this year, obviously. But it's supposed to raise 3 times in the next few years. And this just stems back to the fact that for all these years, all these properties along the rivers, along the lakes, along the ocean, that keep getting clobbered every year, and FEMA keeps giving them money to rebuild. If you're in a floodplain, you're going to pay more than somebody else. And if you're at a high risk floodplain, you're going to pay more than someone at a low risk of flooding. Instead of everyone just paying a flat rate for flood insurance that just didn't cover it. Basically, after New York got flooded, 4 years ago? I think it was. FEMA was, for all intents and purposes, out of money for a while there. They had so much money that I had to fork out to rebuild New York that they were broke, and they're functioning again, but there's still, every time we have a hurricane, every time we have these big storms, FEMA's forking out a lot of money to rebuild. So potential funding for this. There are a number of grants out there. Some of them are, we are actually getting already. We got close to a little over $400,000 from DCED for the projects we already have underway. The Army Corps of Engineers has a Section 219 infrastructure grant that pays for large projects. It's not a small project type of grant. They're larger projects. So is the Section 7001 grant. Neither of them are open right now, but they will be coming open here shortly. One of the things with those two grants, you have to have a viable project. What that means is you got to have your permits in place, and you have to have some other approvals in place before you can even apply for those grants. FEMA has a mitigation assistance grant out there as well. The FEMA mitigation assistance, you have to have a FEMA approved plan in place before you can get the grant money. So there's obviously legwork that needs to be done before you can go for those couple grants. CFA Act 13 flood mitigation program. This is more of a local grant funding. We can get numerous CFA Act 13 grants for this project. We have it shown as 3 phases. It could obviously be broken down into 50 phases, whatever we can afford to do and create some of the projects. We can get, if we can get $400,000 of Act 13 money for, say, a section of the wall, we build that section of the wall, and that's all we build at that time. CFA also has the PA Small Water and Sewer Program funding, which can be applied to this. And they have the H2O grants that can be applied to this. DCD also has the Infrastructure Bank. Now, this is a low interest loan, and it's for bridges. So this is some funding that we can use towards replacing the 2 bridges if that's the choice the borough makes. Then the Allegheny County GEDF grants, they're currently not open. We've received some money. Borough has grants from them right now, actually, that we're using. Anticipated schedules for this, just to give you guys a scope. Phase 1 is about 4 months of final engineering. We have the model basically done. I'd like to refine that model before it goes into the DEP. It'll probably show even more improvements than what we've found so far. It'll be about 8 months of permitting and easement acquisition. Basically, that'll happen at the same time. It's a 105 small projects with DEP. Like I indicated, we've already met with them on that project. They're on board. But it is a small project, 105 permit, so it takes 8 months for them to review it. To be, if we do the whole project at once, to be after we get the permit, to be about 3 months to get it, the construction documents pulled together and it out to bid and awarded. It'd be about an 18-month construction period, and then, like I indicated, it's about 8 to 12 months to get FEMA to do the LOMAR. Phase 2, we don't have any. We don't have a detailed survey of this area yet. We do have a detailed survey for the Phase 1 area. So there'd be, excuse me, mouth is dry. There'd be about a month of survey work, 12 months of engineering for all the walls and everything we need to do for permitting. This area, it's gonna be about 18 months of permitting and easement acquisition. DEP is going to put us through the ringer to get the permit. And then once we get the permits in place, the same 3 months to get everything out to bid and awarded. That phase is about a 36-month construction period, to be 3 years. Obviously, there'll be shutdowns and reopenings of roads and everything to make that all happen. And then again, it's that same 12 months for the FEMA LOMAR. And then phase 3, again, about a month of surveys, 4 months of engineering. That permit would be pretty quickly. That'll be a small project as well, but that'll be about a 6-month process. Same 3 months for construction docs. That'll only take about a year to complete that whole phase. And then that same 12 months for the FEMA LOMAR. Oops. And that is all the information I have for you right now. It's a lot of information. Obviously the costs and the impacts to the community with how many properties get condemned is the big considerations on these projects and what character you want. Lennon Smith, we're kind of leaning to option 2. We kind of like making Baldwin Street the pedestrian corridor, getting people off of Bower Hill Road, because even though there is a sidewalk there, it's not the safest situation because Bower Hill Road is narrow and it is very heavily trafficked. So getting pedestrians out of there is actually a good thing in that aspect. It has the lowest cost overall. And I think it provides some good amenities for the community. Option 3 would be great if it made sense. It doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense to the rest of our office. Losing 37 properties and the tax revenues available from them just doesn't seem appetizing. And then option 1 pretty much keeps the character of the borough as it is for an additional $2 million.
John, I got a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
This is Dale Livingston. Phase one goes up through Bower Hill Road, from Bower Hill Road to the skating rink or down to the
Right,
the back
from
shed.
commercial, from the
Okay.
downstream end of Commercial Street to the skating rink.
So you remove that center pier from Bower Hill Road to help make stuff flow, water, debris flow through there. What about the two conduits right behind Dairy Delight? Are they not going to catch?
They will catch. But they actually have a wider opening. Those two have a wider opening than Bower Hill Road does.
Okay,
So you basically have two. In fact, if you go down right now, you'll see you actually have two streams going down through there right now. Water goes through the two culverts. The key to keeping those functioning is keeping the debris out of the bottom of those.
Okay.
The debris was extremely high when the borough went in there and cleaned it out. When we got the permit, they removed over 3 feet of debris from the bottom of that culvert.
okay.
But yes, you're right. You're right. There is still a structure there, but it's the openings, the hydraulic capacity of those two culverts is more than what Bower Hill Road has.
Okay. Next question. This new access at Janeway.
Mhm.
If they put that in, and I don't know what the timing for that is, if they put that in before they remove the Bower Hill Road, we start getting debris in there. Will that new engineered gateway access, will that stand up to the hydraulic pressure of the debris and everything else that comes down there?
Yes, it's designed to have the hydraulic. It's designed to support the hydraulic pressure for the depth of water that we have in that corridor. The way it's a kind of like a design build for this from the manufacturer. You say we're going to have 9 feet of water at the 100-year flood elevation. It's a 9-foot wide opening. It needs to be able to withstand that hydraulic pressure.
Okay.
And that's how they design it. So what happens is those plastic logs get thicker or thinner depending on the depth of water.
Okay. And one last question. It was one that Joe Verducci asked. Do the grants require match?
Some grants require match, some grants don't. Everyone's different. GEDF does not. So they're the ones we just got. Help me out here, Joe. Is it $423,000 if I remember right?
We have 425,000 for the park flood work and then 100,000 for Bar Hill Road.
Yeah. So we have no match to those. All those projects came in under budget, so there's really no cost to the borough for those ones.
Okay, but I mean, as far as any of the funding options for the bigger project here.
Right. Where's that at? So yeah, so depending on the project is depending on the match.
Okay,
Most of these have maybe a 15% match. The GEDF does not require a match. And I'm not 100% familiar with the core what their match requirements are. There may not be any match with them either because the way those funds work, since they're federal monies.
Okay. Planning Commission, you got questions? Justine, Mike, Larry?
Yeah, I do have some questions and comments. I guess the first comment is that I'll make, since you all know my relationship with the firm, this is the first I've seen this. So I haven't had any involvement whatever with John or anyone else in developing these alternatives or looking at the models or anything else. So it's all new to me. John, I do have a question on, I mean, you wrote off retention pretty quickly. What is the volume of retention that will be needed to make the existing channel somewhat functional with the 100-year flood? I mean, what is the actual volume required for storage?
I never got it to work. So
Oh, well,
what I
you
mean is-
didn't get it to work. I understand you didn't get it to work at the park, and that's not a surprise.
right.
But they're
So I was
upstream of
never-
that.
I was never able to come up with a number that would like a volume that would actually work. So I don't have a number for you.
What do you have, like an average capacity of the stream conveyance? How much it can convey?
I can provide it. I don't have it. I don't have it readily available.
Yeah, I
right
think
now.
I'd like to see that personally. I'd like to see the storm hydrograph. And the reason I'm asking this is it sounds to me like you didn't look at any potential storage outside the borough.
I did not know. We did not look at the storage outside the borough.
Well, there's a site that's upstream on McLaughlin Run. It's been talked about a number of times.
You are correct. And I'm in
I
agreement with you on that, but we didn't look at that as part of this project.
I think we need to take a look at that. I mean, that's a very large site. My suspicion is it's going to provide a heck of a lot of storage, whether or not it's enough to attenuate the peak rate of flow and make it more manageable. I don't know, but I really think we need to see that number. The mine elevations, where do you actually have what we would consider good mine maps that would give you those elevations?
I can download them. I don't have them downloaded, but the key, the real easy way to know where they're at is if you go to McLaughlin Run Park, the water is crystal clear. As soon as you go right around the bend there, that's where the acid mine's pouring out of the hillside. That's when the water turns orange. That's the elevation that's the typical elevation of the mine.
Well, that's the elevation where the water's coming out. I'm not sure that that's actually, I mean, if you had a portal that you could find there, okay, I can see that, but you know, the mine could be above that, could be below that, and it's just got a lot of static head on it. You know,
You're
it goes
correct.
either direction. So I don't know that personally I'd write off that issue with the mine all that quickly. You did say something about backwater. You assuming you looked at the tunnel, that the backwater elevation at the downstream end of the tunnel was such that it would impede flow. Is that what I understood you to say?
Yeah, it doesn't get the benefit. It doesn't get the benefit it would if it was a free flowing tunnel.
So you don't get free discharge at the end. You
Right.
cannot design that tunnel with a slope that you would get free discharge at the downstream end.
No, not because of the way the back channel functions.
Where would that outlet at? Where would
I
the
looked at,
tunnel actually-
I ran one model where it's the reason I know how this is working is I ran one model with a tunnel that discharged in McLaughlin Run down by the skating rink. And then I ran another one that the model blew up on me when I tried to get it to work, but I ran another one that put it right downstream of the CSO at the end of Commercial Street.
So you didn't look at anything farther downstream?
No.
Because there is some elevation advantage there, I would think.
Some. The back channel is relatively flat, but there is some. Yeah, you'd gain a foot or so.
What size is that? Do you have any idea what diameter that tunnel would need to be?
Let's see here. I think I had it here. I had the model of it. Let's see if I still do. If I have the model open, I can tell you. Options, plan view. Open plan. Wrong model.
What is the problem with the back channel? It's just so flat that it doesn't flow. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's got multiple problems. One of the primary problems with it is it's the flood control gate at the high end of it does not function. It's
Where when you say at the high end, where is that?
here, I'll show you. See, I can show you here on Google.
Well, you better zoom in because it's pretty hard to read these slides.
It's up above the school, the high school.
Oh,
And-
okay.
It
Where it splits.
yeah, where it splits, yes. There's the gate system there is not functioning, and it's not letting water down through to flush out, clean out the back channel.
So
So
the
I don't know,
back channel sediments in.
right? I don't know, Larry, if you saw the picture at the very beginning of the presentation of what the confluence of McLaughlin Run and back channel looks like right now. There's a 3-foot island that's got the entire confluence filled in right now.
Yeah, I saw that. So let me ask you, who's responsible for maintaining that?
Well, theoretically, the flood authority is responsible for the back channel itself. Before Joe was involved, we were trying to get some discussions with the flood authority to get them to look into doing something, and we weren't very successful.
Is it still Dan Dizerat, the engineer there?
It's Joe. Yeah, it's Joe Sites. Gateway.
Does Bridgeville appoint anyone to that board?
Yes.
Joe Coward, do you know, or does anyone in council know? We
Yes,
have
we do.
a board.
That's where my gravel bar. Here we go.
At the Blasio, and yes, we do. It's Joe.
Larry, yes, there's an appointee to the board.
Who is it?
I believe it's still Joe Mejia.
So this is Jack. This is the asphalt plant, Larry. I don't know if you can see the screen. This
Yep,
is
I
the
can see it.
asphalt
Yep,
plant. This is Jack Cardoni's property.
right.
This is the back channel right here.
That's the back channel there. So is there a weir there?
Yeah, there's a structure here.
What kind of structure is it? Do you know?
I don't have, I haven't got my hands on copies of plans yet on it. I've been trying to find them. That's one of the things I would like to push is to get that thing functioning so this can be cleaned out some.
It looks like there's a dam across the channel when you zoom in.
Yeah,
like
looks like Cardoni's did something.
Right
there.
there. Yep.
Yep.
Right up above there a little bit. Right across the main channel.
Yeah, it's a little splash pad weir. It's like a wall in the. You're right. It is a dam. It's not a dam. It's
So the theory is this thing was designed to regulate flow and provide sufficient flow to flush the back channel.
right.
And the back channel is probably sedimented in from
Yeah.
the beginning to the end, and so it doesn't flow. So how much does that backwater impact this flooding model?
See, very, very significantly, actually, especially the lower section.
So
If
if you
you-
had free discharge, let's just assume that you cut your model off and you dropped into a black hole.
Mm-hmm.
What
This-
impact did that have on the flooding in McLaughlin Run?
It would drop this lower section.
Just the lower section.
Well, we'll just start with the lower section because that part I'm familiar with. I'm really familiar with is it was dropping it approximately 3 feet. And then it works its way back as you work your way up.
Would the 100-year flood be within canal bank?
Yes, yes, very close. Yes.
So if they just maintained a free discharge, that flooding in the lower end could be eliminated. And when you say, I'm assuming you mean from like Commercial Street to the roller rink.
Right. Yes.
All right. So then when
And
you
then
move
above that, it
upstream,
drops.
and when you move upstream from there, the next section, what is it that's the controlling factor for flooding there? Is it the
Baldwin Street Bridge,
the Baldwin Street Bridge?
because it backs up so high behind it. It backs about 3 feet above the bridge deck.
And that's
Behind
just,
that.
that's assuming unimpeded flow, right?
Right.
You're not thinking that there's debris caught on anything. That's just the limiting capacity of the bridge opening.
Correct. So
All right.
yeah, so the hydraulic model goes about 3 feet above bridge deck there, which means the water is pouring down Baldwin Street and flooding properties.
So if you replace that bridge, are you able to get sufficient conveyance through there? Can you get an opening big enough to convey the flood?
Yes, it actually conveys it below the bridge deck without overtopping. It actually, water comes straight through there, Larry, the hydraulic line. There's no hydraulic jump anymore.
Yeah, I do remember seeing that in the model.
And there's no flooding of these properties up towards Maple Street. That's why we don't have anything proposed through there.
So clean the channel, replace the bridge. About where does that make how far upstream does that make us good to go before we have to do something more to reduce flooding?
Maple Street.
That gets you to Maple Street, huh?
Mm-hmm. And the only thing we got to do the only thing we want to do at Maple Street is at the end of the ramp there, we just got to build one of those log systems so that the water doesn't back up the actual ramp. The wall that's in place is high enough now that the 100-year doesn't overtop of it, even as in current conditions, but it still can back up the ramp. So if we put one of those log systems, the water from backing up the ramp.
So now let's talk about from the Maple Street Bridge on up to the park. I mean, we've got that channel that runs behind all those houses.
Right.
What are we looking at there?
Well, for the first 3 or 4 lots, it's just an earthen levee. And then from there up to about Coolidge is where the it'd just be a smaller soldier beam and lagging wall system.
So like a channelization kind of a project, really.
Right. Yeah. It basically the soldier beam and lagging wall becomes your levee.
Right.
You set the top of the wall 3 feet above.
What kind of freeboard are you allowing yourself?
3 feet.
All right.
That's what's required. That's what's required under FEMA for a levee.
All right. Cool. So, John, I really think we need to take a look at, if we can, to what extent can we shave that peak? If we go upstream, if you look on up McLaughlin Run, I don't know if you remember where Colvett used to be. It's something different now. Right upstream from that, there's a power substation. I think they call it Mosbach Manufacturing if you're on Google Earth now.
Mosbach Manufacturing.
Can you zoom in a little bit? Let me see where you are.
I'm up at 19, or I'm all the way up to 19.
Oh yeah, you're way up. You're way too far up.
Too far up. You're thinking this area right here, aren't you?
I
Here's
think
the
that, yes,
substation.
that's it.
Here's the
Yes, that's
substation.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that area, that whole area there,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of volume to be had there. If you do sideline storage and, put the, define your channel downstream of that, you can back up a fair amount of water. You'd have to do a lot of excavation there. But I think you can get some fairly significant sideline storage. And if you can shave that peak enough, a lot of these other things become much more viable. Now, I realize that's in St. Clair, and that's going to be problematic, but I really think we need to look at it, because right now, I mean, 20 million bucks. I mean, that's obviously a very huge lift for the borough. But I think we need to look at these alternatives as fourth alternative and see what we can do with that. But the whole channelization, I really think we need to dig in on that back channel, because that bugs the hell out of me. I think it's allowed to, I assume it's been allowed to sediment in, and it's been that way. I don't want to say since I moved to the borough in '77, I can always remember crap down in that stream there. It just didn't flow real well at all.
Yeah,
And
as
that
long as I can
shouldn't be
remember.
the case.
Yeah.
If I can say one thing, a couple of things, actually. I personally own property across from that Upper St. Clair acreage for sale. And I do have the mine maps because I've had them for about 8 years now. Not only are you looking at somebody, a developer that owns 21 acres of that property, you're also looking at people or a person that owns 3 lots at the flattest spot closest to the creek. Bridgeville owns a little bit, I forget which, we had discussed it last year when we talked about accessing when Upper St. Clair or the developer wanted to access that property and build
Right,
direct.
we have a conservation zone up there, right?
Correct. So, but again, that whole area is undermined. But also too, the development that's on the top of the hill, and I forget the actual name of the development, does have a retention pond at the creek. They never do anything with it, but they consider it a retention pond. And I do believe I still have the drawings for that, so. And that property's up for sale. Those
Oh,
21
yeah,
acres.
that property is basically not developable for a lot of reasons. Not the
Right,
least of
and-
which is they needed to take our conservation land to make some of their alternatives work, and you know, we had that discussion. Presumably they went away.
Well, they have a different realtor now, so who knows what's going to happen, but
Okay. Tim, Mike, you got any questions?
Just back on the funding, John. I mean, obviously these plans start and stop for a borough like Bridgeville with funding. Experience, I mean, what's the percentage that we could be hopeful about actually getting funded, as opposed to, like, are we talking about single percentages and we've got to do the rest of the lift ourselves? Or, you know, if we pursue that in the right way, can we get the lion's share of it paid for? I'm not looking to lock you in, just give me a sense of, like, is there even something to pursue here?
I believe the lines portion of this can be funded through grants and some small loans, but most of it, I believe most of it we can get through grants. Like I indicated, we've received a significant amount just in the past year, just for flood control projects. We got basically $500,000 last year for flood control projects between Bower Hill Road, McLaughlin Run Park, and Janeway.
John, do you know what the relationship is between the Corps of Engineers and the Chartiers Flood Authority?
Sorry, didn't hear a word, Larry. I apologize.
Do you know what the relationship is between the Corps of Engineers and the Flood Authority? I mean, who does the Flood Authority answer to, I guess, is the question I'm asking.
I think the communities that are associated, theoretically, the communities that are associated with it.
Yeah, but I would tend to think.
They answer to the Army Corps.
Yeah, they do answer to the Army Corps.
That would have been,
ultimately.
yeah, and I'm just wondering if it might be appropriate to get a meeting arranged between them and the Army Corps, and frankly, raise holy hell about this channel, why they're not maintaining it. I mean, I hate
Yeah, I
to
was
put them in
kinda-
that position, but you know what? People are getting flooded because they're not doing what they need to do, is what I'm hearing.
Yep. I was shocked that the Corps didn't even look at the back channel with their study. I figured they would have looked at that a little bit more than they did. Like I said, they
just lopped it off at the channel, right?
No, they incorporated like just above and just below, and they plugged in the known elevation for
Right,
the,
yes,
So-
just to give themselves a hydraulic point of beginning, really.
right. Yeah, exactly. So it's high to start with. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that doesn't work, and they probably don't know why it doesn't work, so. I honestly think that's a discussion that needs to be had.
Okay. Are there any council members that got questions, comments?
BJ's put a question up.
asked who maintains the levees and, oops, lost it.
Screw pumps, etc.
Screw pumps, and et cetera. Is that the borough or is that,
Just screw pumps would be the responsibility of the borough.
okay,
The levee wall, it'd be basically it's not, wouldn't be much maintenance to them. I mean, it's a steel and concrete structure, so
yeah, and what sort of costs are you looking at for maintenance with the screw pumps and generators and,
I don't have a solid number right now on it.
Okay.
Obviously, we're not, because again, a lot of it is driven by the final design of those on what the costs are. I mean, if it's a very simple system, which is what we'd like to do, the costs are minimal. You do a little bit of maintenance on your diesel generator, and what we've talked about doing is making the diesel generator the primary source electric, and like Duquesne Light is the secondary. That way they get exercised, because one of the problems with generators is they have to fire up and they need to be exercised, or they.
yeah,
So that's one of the things to keep that done. So I mean, the maintenance for a screw pump is, I mean, it's only going to be $1,000 a year at most.
okay.
I mean,
Do we know,
Coriopolis has 3 or 4 of them, correct, Larry? If I
Yes.
remember right, and
Yeah,
they've been there since the 70s, and they're still functioning strong.
so do we know the lifespan of a screw pump? I mean, can they say that it's 20 years or longer, or?
probably
the
quite a bit longer,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
screw pumps in Coriopolis are almost 50 years old now.
right?
Okay,
They're really fairly easy to maintain. There's not a lot to them, really. John, on that back channel, do
Mhm.
you have a profile all the way down to the main stem?
I don't, but I have good grade shots at Painter's Run and at McLaughlin Run, so we got that. You can interpolate
But you don't get all the way back down to where it comes into the main channel at the high school.
down there below the Cross Creek office building.
Yes, basically,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know, but I can
That's
get
not
it.
they didn't model that. There's no.
No.
I really think we need to get a couple of elevations in there and just try to resolve the question of if that was dredged, what would that do for us as far as a hydraulic grade line where McLaughlin Run enters?
Mhm.
And see if in fact that, the notion that getting free discharge, to see if free discharge is even possible, frankly.
Nick asked a couple questions. One, are the grants reimbursement based?
As in, would pay out the money and then we'd request the money back from the grant.
Yeah,
Depends what type it is, Sean. The nice thing with the some of the grants now that you have this studied, you can apply for and be eligible for a lot more opportunities. Without having to study, you don't have the opportunity even to apply. So the pool of money that's out there for flooding, once it's been studied, you can apply for a lot more grants. Some of them are reimbursement grants. You got to borrow money up front and then you get reimbursed on the backside. Other ones are straight up grant.
okay. And I'm not sure, Nick asked another one and I don't quite totally understand it. Nick, can you get on and ask a question about the retention?
Yeah. So I understand that it's undermined down there past McLaughlin, that land is for sale.
right.
Is there a possibility of making that a man-made lake for a retention pond? And that solves two, maybe 3 problems. It creates more of an economy for gaming because it can be used for a gaming station. It gives St. Clair lake houses and it gives us water control. Is that a feasible idea at all?
Something
Well,
that can be looked at. I mean, there's obviously there's pluses and minuses to all of it. Because it'll be in Upper St. Clair, would have to get Upper St. Obviously, first and foremost, would have to get Upper St. Clair to agree to it. But we need to see if it would actually work and actually solve any problems based on the cost of it before we'd even introduce it as an option.
Yeah, but a more direct answer, Nick, is if it's already filled with water, there's no retention available. It's got to be empty for it to work.
Right. And that's where the undermining part would come into place. You know, when you wouldn't completely fill it.
Well, I mean, every gallon of water that's sitting there as a lake is a gallon that's not available for retention. And we're trying to
Retain as much as
we're trying to
possible.
take away as much water as we can, if in fact it's doable. And I understand the issue with St. Clair, but I mean, just let that go for a while. It's the first question is it even technically feasible? Once you answer
Correct.
that question, you can start to address some of these other potential issues.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I got one quick question, Dale.
Go ahead, Mike.
So all your calculations, John, are they based on Upper St. Clair and Bethel Park doing nothing?
Yes, it takes the known flow for all the FEMA studies that have been done for McLaughlin Run. It just uses that flow and runs it through the model.
So if Bethel Park or Upper St. Clair did something to mitigate, because they had flooding as well in the past. It's like, I know, for example, like where Outback Steakhouse was, they did a new culvert there. They did some work. If either community did, having the same type of meetings we are, would that affect our numbers? Or does it, doesn't make a difference because it's still coming downstream?
Unless they're proposing, as Larry's mentioned, a large pond system, a detention system somewhere upstream, either whether it's
Right.
up in Clare, something we're going to look at, or something even up in the Beth Park. Unless they propose something that's going to significantly hold water back, the only thing they're going to potentially do is they're going to open up a culvert to get water through faster, which is going to exacerbate downstream problems.
Exactly.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, building bigger culverts up there just gets the water to us quicker and makes our problem worse.
Exactly. That's what I thought. That's what just wanted to clarify.
Okay. Any other questions from the planning commission?
No,
Council?
I'm fine.
Okay, Joe, we got public on here. Is there anybody that's got questions, comments?
I'm not sure. They can unmute themselves.
I know Pat de Blasio was on. I don't know if anybody else is on. Pat, you got any questions?
I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First, regarding the back channel of Chartiers Creek, I stood there with Joe Misha, not at the 2018 flood, but at the flood before that. Afterwards, I think, Mike, you might remember this as well. Joe Misha worked tirelessly to get the back channel dredged, just the short piece by where McLaughlin Run came into the back channel of Chartiers Creek. It is my understanding that the back channel is still not part of the Army Corps of Engineers Fulton Flood Control Project. And it's also my understanding that the weir has not worked, and that comes from Joe Seitz, but the weir has not worked since it was put in. As Larry pointed out, there's not enough flow to remove the sediment. So I wanted to put those pieces out there as far as who's responsible. And we have not obviously dredged it or taken the sediment out of it since that the flood before this, the 2018 flood. Having said that, done a really interesting flood control project. My comment to the planning commission is there's more of a problem in this area than flood control. Flooding is a major problem. But traffic, Baldwin Street, parking, those are also parts of the problem. The properties in phase 2 are impacted by multiple issues. Flooding is just one of them. And I looked at option number 1. I thought John's comment was perfect. For a little bit more, you can keep it exactly the way it is, or pretty much, for option 1. I would hope that we would not want to keep it exactly. There are some improvements, and I thought the cul-de-sac was rather interesting. John, did you take a look at all in phase 1 about going through the Sohal cement plant? Did you look at that as an option in phase 1?
I'm sorry, I missed something there.
Sure. In phase 1, rather than screw pumps and levees, and by the way, I think Larry is, obviously, if you could dredge it and eliminate the problem entirely, dredging the back channel. But on the other side of the railroad tracks is a cement plant.
Yes.
Did you take a look at just taking the creek through the cement plant?
Did not know.
I would encourage you to at least take a look at those elevations. I have mentioned this to Dick Teodori, and he does not object to it being considered. Obviously, he would want just compensation, but it might truly improve the community, as well as being an easy way to solve the problem. The third option in phase 2 certainly seems to provide a better community environment. And I'm curious as to the planning commission's thoughts on the holistic approach to the solution. Anybody?
I
Looking at
think,
it more than a project?
I'm willing to look at options. I think it would be good to look at options, if there's something different out there that may be better and maybe outside the box. So,
I would,
So, Pat, I have
Dale,
a,
I'm sorry, Justine, go ahead.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
I have a question, Pat. So so I'm assuming that Nick Theodori is the owner of Sohal's, is that right?
Dick Teodori, yes, he is.
Okay. And do we have any idea what kind of revenue he's bringing into Bridgeville in regards to taxes and everything?
We could up the property tax and the other pieces. Joe Cower, I'm sure, could get that for us.
Because, I mean, I honestly think that they probably do contribute to our financial benefit, right?
Absolutely, Justine. They are a property tax source. They're a mercantile tax. Yes,
Right.
They do. The question is, would the values of the properties on York Street, Liberty Street, would that residential community increase in value if it didn't have a cement plant next to it?
Oh, well, I mean, I would think that would have to be taken into consideration. I think all models would have to be considered. So, all right, gotcha.
Mike?
Pat, you talking about what, building a whole new channel down through Sohal?
Yes.
Like, and I'm looking at this on Google Earth. I mean, and what John was talking about was basically, a levee wall for the existing channel.
Mhm.
I got a sneaking suspicion if you want to do a whole new channel down through Sohal, it's going to probably cost.
I can't hear you.
You're breaking up, Larry.
what I was saying is, I think if you're talking about a whole new channel down through Sill Halls, it's probably gonna cost 3 or 4 times what the Levy wall is that John was talking about, because
Yeah,
I mean, that's a long distance. I mean, the only thing you really avoid is the Commercial Street Bridge, frankly. And you've got a 90-degree bend you gotta make there. Kind of hard to, in my mind, to imagine that's gonna be cheaper than what John's already talking about, truthfully.
You got a high vertical slope right next to the railroad once you get past the plant.
Right.
Well, remember that you eliminate the railroad bridge and the culvert. Both of them are eliminated.
Yeah, but I'm not hearing that those two are critical hydraulic structures. Are they, John?
Yeah, those aren't the critical hydraulic structures.
I
No.
didn't think so.
The Bower Hill Road bridge is the only critical one, right? Again, I don't know. I don't have any engineering. That's why I was asking John if he took a look at it or what the thoughts were. And I guess, Larry, you're telling me right now, it's.
I mean, you can run the
multiple
numbers.
pieces
I
in
guess
cost.
thinking suspicion, it's not gonna be competitive at all.
Yeah, I think the earthworks alone will be well over the cost of the others.
I mean, and I don't know how you would, I mean, just compensation for that property, that's gonna be a lot of money.
Okay,
I was pulling back from the just compensation piece. My question to John was, what does the engineering look like? And to be honest with you, from my layman's point of view, it's, could you just, dig it out a little bit and it just flows down through that property? I don't have any idea what the elevations are.
No.
Not an idea? Then scratch it off the list.
okay. Mike,
I was just gonna say, for as much money as we're proposing, to look at something like that would probably be, at least take a look at it, but Larry just answered our question, so.
Okay.
My point's moot.
I
okay,
mean, I don't want to discourage John from doing the cost estimate. It's just that it's hard for me to imagine that's gonna be cheaper than basically, what is it, phase 1, John? Is that what you called it?
I just ran a really stupid ballpark number just from the length. I took the length from Bower Hill Road to where it would tie in below the train trestle. It's over 2,000 feet. You go 10 by 20 by 2,000. You're looking at over $10 million and just to moving, just to cut a channel, not to mention moving the hillside that has to be moved.
As compared to, what'd you say, 3 million?
Yeah.
okay. Pat, you got anything else? I'm gonna try and wrap this up. Joe, is there anybody else from the public out there? It's good. Okay,
Not that I'm aware of, Dale.
okay. Thank you, John.
Yep, not a problem.
To address old business, I guess I would take a motion to table the 3 items that we have for old business until the November, December meeting.
I second that.
I have a question before you do that. The chicken
Okay.
keeping, what's the status of that?
Joe distributed a draft of the ordinance
Oh, I must have missed that.
last Thursday with all the other information for tonight's meeting.
It was all in the same packet, Larry.
All right, I'm gonna have to go look because I completely missed that.
Yeah.
So I would take a motion to table all 3 of those issues.
One other question, if I can, Dale, before that motion gets made. So I think I saw, just keep me honest here, Joe, we've got our foot in the door for budget for 21 for the comprehensive plan, right? I think we went for 50% of it.
Yes.
Okay, and then on the pedestrian safety, just want to make sure we don't lose a window here with 21 budget requests. Back to you, Dale. I know I missed last month, but anything that we need to get in with any sense of urgency, or are we good with the 50% on the plan? And that's what we're asking for this year.
Dale, I could give an update if it's helpful.
Looks like we might have just lost Dale. He was frozen in time there for a second.
Tim, what's going on? We have a proposed budget that's already been circulated to the council finance committee that's balanced for next year without a tax increase. There is money in place for year one of a phased comprehensive plan. So $25,000 is penciled in the budget.
Okay.
Finance committee was okay with it. Council will have their first budget meeting on November 2nd. So hopefully I'll have a concrete answer then, but right now everything's looking very favorable. The
Okay.
signed budget within the Public Works Department was increased about to $6,000. That does start phasing in some of the signage improvements for pedestrian signage, and we can even start doing some welcome signage. So it's a start.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So pretty much everything that we've heard at planning commission meetings have been addressed throughout the year within the proposed budget.
Good.
Sorry, my signal dropped out. I missed a lot of that.
We're good. I was just asking for anything that we need to get our requests in for budget for 21. Are we good? Joe confirmed very succinctly that we are.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to table the old business until the November, December meeting, which is.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it. Oh,
Go ahead.
Okay, Tim made the motion, Justine second. And this is to table the 2021 budget, the chicken keeping and the pedestrian safety issues until the next meeting. Any further discussion?
Dale, this is Joe Cower here.
Go ahead, Joe.
Instead of having separate attachments for each one of these agenda items, the packet was one PDF file that had everything there. So just keep scrolling to that PDF and you'll see everything
Right.
in order.
Right. But I would, the motion to table the discussion and stuff till next meeting.
And then the only other thing before you vote on it, just as an update, that active Allegheny grant, this has been talked on for a couple of months. The deadline to apply for that is middle of November. So it's going to be before your next meeting. I did prepare a grant application seeking money to do an active transportation plan through that grant source. It will be on the council agenda because there's a resolution that needs adopted by council before we submit it. So hopefully when we come back at December or November, that's going to be off your agenda and submitted. And hopefully we just wait to see if it was how it's determined.
Is there anything that we need to do to take action on that tonight?
No. Everything
Okay.
you've guys been doing all year led up to that grant application. So
Okay,
all those slides that went over the need for pedestrian safety and traffic mitigation work, those were the footprints for that grant application, and they're being included with that application, including that report from the police chief on all the pedestrian accidents. So it basically all the discussions we had this year were the foundation and actually got put to work.
okay. So I got a motion and a second to table the rest of the discussion of the old business till next meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Somebody want to make the motion? Or-
Yeah,
I'll
when
make a
you say
motion.
I'll take, I think everybody thinks you're saying I will make. So
Oh, sorry.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
There you
Any-
go.
Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye. Thank you all. And
Thank you, Dale. Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. I pronounce the meeting adjourned.
all right. See you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Night.
See y'all.